We gotta get it active. What's that?
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a quorum now, so will the City of Florence, South Carolina Design Review Board please come to order. Thank all of you who are with us and our guests. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes. Do I have any corrections or additions for the minute? Do I hear an approval? Someone want to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Did somebody say?
Second.
Okay. The minutes stand approved as sent to you in your packet. I also sent to you in your packet was a meeting calendar for the next year. And I will need a vote of approval for this. Has everyone looked at it? Are there any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve? Wait a second. Can we do it by acclamation? Do I hear a motion that we approve the calendar for next year? Hello?
Can I be heard?
Yes.
This is Scott Collins. I move that we approve the calendar as submitted.
Second?
Second.
The calendar stands approved. We have only one thing on our agenda today that we have to have a public hearing, and the matter in position for action is DRV 2021-01. It's a request to amend the certificate of appropriateness for landscaping for the building at 414 North Court Street, tax map number 90085-01013. It's in the D1 redevelopment overlay district. And I will ask Elaine if she will read that for us.
Good afternoon. Give me a minute to share my screen.
Out.
Which one's there's the slide. Sorry, user error. Yeah, the applicant is seeking to amend a previously issued certificate of appropriateness that was issued to allow the construction of a new church building back in 2015. The amendment is needed to accommodate the current situation regarding the installation of landscaping that was agreed to at the time. The project was completed in late 2020, so they've just completed building this building. It is the missionary majority Missionary Baptist Church, which is located at the corner of North Coit Street and Sumter Street. And it also extends, their property extends down to Marion Street, as you can see here. It is in the D1 overlay district. And the entire block is zoned campus, including the residences that are around it. And across the street is zoned commercial commercial use. Thank you. Blanking here. This is the original site plan that was agreed to back in 2015. As you can see, they built the church building right next to the existing building. And at the time, it was agreed that a buffer yard C, which was at the time under the old zoning ordinance, was a 15-foot distance of buffer yard was agreed upon between the church property and the residential properties to the south and the east of it. And those dark green lines are where the buffer yard was indicated on the original site plan. And the total, under the requirements of the type C buffer yard, they would be required to have canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, and evergreens, as well as a stockade fence dispersed along what ended up being 550 linear feet of shared property lines around the residential, between the residential and the church building. So for every 100 linear feet, they were required to put 4 canopy trees, 6 understory trees, 24 shrubs, 12 evergreens or conifers, and a 6-foot wood stockade fence. They did install the 6-foot wood stockade fence. These pictures are from back in December. And so they do have the stockade fence between the church and the residents, just to the south of it. And but they did not install any of the landscaping at the time. And they have since begun installing landscaping. They've gotten a few, I think those are boxwoods, dispersed along the fence lines and around the church building a little bit. But at the time that they got the certificate of appropriateness, they had a membership of about, I believe, 300 to 400 people. But now that the building has finally gotten finished, they are only having about 35 to 50 people attending the church at the time. So right now it is just financially difficult for them to put in the remainder of the landscaping. And so they have requested that the total amount of landscaping required be decreased, and they've agreed to put some landscaping in as they go, as it becomes feasible for them. But they just wanted to, the city has been after them to get that landscaping put in, and so it was necessary that they get their COA updated for that. And the pastor of the church and a member of the church are here to answer any questions you may have. So that concludes staff's report.
And okay. Are there any questions, board members, of the report?
This is Scott. Does the DRB have the authority to circumvent the requirements of zoning requirements or modify?
I believe you do have the authority to modify the requirements on the COA, yes.
Okay.
And Scott, this is Jerry. The old zoning code required this. However, the new unified development code, while the landscaping, the parking lot and the building landscaping requirements increased under the unified development code, the buffering requirements in this particular case would have actually gone down a bit. So while if we had permitted it under the current zoning code, they would have been required to have foundation plantings and more parking lot landscaping, but the buffer requirement because of the adjacent zoning district would have actually gone down. So
that's interesting. Do you know if they would have adhered to to the parking lane, their current plans, do you know if they adhere to the non-buffer requirements? In other words, in some ways, perhaps we should look at the current requirements, and if that's somewhat, that would certainly get them closer to being compliant, right? If we were looking at the current buffer requirements?
That's correct, yes.
Would that be more stringent as far as the parking lot requirements, however?
It would be, yes. They would be required to install, landscaping in the parking lot as well as around the foundation of the church. Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
So to clarify, they are asking for a waiver to decrease the amount of landscaping put there, not ask for an extension of time to do the original plan, correct?
Yes, and we do have, members of the church or leaders of the church present, but it has been a little unclear. But I believe the request was to reduce the amount of landscaping and allow an extension of time, a bit of both, yes.
Are they going to make that request now, or are we going to talk about it after that?
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing. So we're now open for the public hearing, if anybody would like to speak to it. If you'll give us your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Alfonso Porter. I presently pastor Majority Missionary Baptist Church for the past 13 years. This project initially, we started out, everything seemed to be going along really well. And then we ran into some unexpected problems. However, it took about a year delay before we got the final architectural drawings to move forth with Gilbert and Fields. Gilbert and Fields actually finished, I think it was October of 2 years ago, I think 2 years, give or take. A year ago, we were in the sanctuary, October 13th. Yeah, so it's been going on 2 years. However, with the COVID-19 crisis, it affected our attendance and of course our tithes and offerings. And we had to move to just looking at the mandatory bills of mortgage, things of that nature. But it is our intention to fulfill all the obligations that we agreed to initially. This is why we're asking for an extension, but we really want it to be in line with the architectural drawings that will meet the requirements of our new church. That's where we are now. Okay.
Are there any questions for?
How much time of an extension are you asking for?
Well, I have my trustee here. What do you think, about a year or less?
Depending on this COVID-19, like I say, our membership is 90% down, and it's really hard. We barely making it and everything like that. It's gonna take us some time.
That's your membership.
I mean,
It's actually that you mean people
yeah,
aren't participating, but you
Attendance.
still got a big membership.
Yes, the attendance is down.
Attendance, we got a big attendance. Now we see an attendance now since we went only probably 30, 34 a Sunday now. And from what, 150?
Yeah, easy, because we were conforming to CDC guidelines, and make sure that everybody is safe. So we did the sanctuary worship, streamline and parking lot. But I would say about 60% of our congregation are elderly people. The millennials are not that committed in some places just yet, but that's been one of our challenges. So to answer the question, I think a year less we can achieve and get this work done.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Porter? We will close the public hearing then and have discussion by the board.
As usual, I've got some thoughts on the matter. First of all, I am very sympathetic to their plight, as well as a lot of similar groups, agencies, organizations during this time, and it's certainly understandable how it's made the impact on them. And I am certainly in favor of the extension. I think that my only, I guess, warning is when you allow someone to circumvent or have special dispensation from a code or zoning requirement, I think you're setting a precedent for future requests of a similar nature that cut and dry. And so to listen to future requests if because we've set this precedent. That's, I don't know why I was church on the corner of I guess that's Palmetto and Irby. I know they came a couple of years ago wanting to remove some trees because they were causing physical damage. And this board took a very, I think, somewhat of a draconian position on and disallowed them from taking those trees down that they had planted because of the tree ordinance. And to me, they were, in my personal opinion, that was a fair request, and they were denied. And it's not apples to apples. It's not the same circumstances. It certainly wasn't a pandemic, but it was a church that was struggling financially that wanted to sort of on some of their by these damaging roots. So not to drag them into it, but I think that we're going to have similar requests, and I think we should be equally as sensitive to other people's requests now that, and if we allow the special dispensation of time.
Would anybody else like to say something? I do think it's a very unusual time that we're going through. Hopefully we'll never have to do this in a while anyway. So because of the COVID, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the requirement, we extend the zoning buffer yard requirements for this particular piece of property, but yet they will be required to fulfill the as originally mandated. And that extension would be.
I'm having a little hard time hearing. Can you read that for us?
And you can certainly paraphrase that, by the way.
Well, we didn't hear the end of what you said. What was the time limit you put on there?
I mean, as requested, I just said 1 year.
1 year.
And that may, and when you think about it, we may be that, because 1 year goes by very quickly.
Well, also, it's easier to plant in the winter than in the summer sometimes for watering requirements.
Yeah, they may come up against the deadline and start slapping in plants in July or something or whatever, you know what I mean? So, but I'm certainly willing to change my motion if others believe that we should extension of more than 1 year.
And did you want the original buffer yard requirements or what the current ordinance would require for the parking lot and such?
I guess because they weren't, yes, I understood Jerry, because of the go by the unified it would change the buffer yard. It would also change parking and foundation. I guess what it was my motion was just to have them original obligation. Again, that's certainly discussion. I think that if you modify the pickup and have them fulfill the requirements of the parking and the foundation per the current code, per current zoning requirements. Does Jerry have any clarification?
Sure. This is Jerry. Yeah, I think it may be because of the parking lot design, often the original design of the parking lot would be meant to accommodate such plantings. And I mean, we'd have to take a closer look at it to see if they could even fulfill with the current design what the current regulations are. I think definitely them fulfilling the original requirement would be appropriate here. With that being said, you guys know I'm a landscape guy, a horticulturalist at heart, and would love to see more, but I do think that fulfilling the original requirement would follow through with their obligation.
And that was my
Well, I think it was indicated that they wanted to fulfill that.
Yes.
So.
I agree with Mr. motion, but I'd like to maybe suggest a year and a half pageant, and so we'll go by very quickly, and certainly planting seasons need to be thought about.
And I would be willing to amend my motion to 18 months.
So can you read that, Morris?
Yeah, I'll read that off. Okay, then I have the motion as being to extend the buffer yard requirement as originally agreed upon in the original certificate of appropriateness for 18 months.
Correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second,
Was that Mike?
Yeah.
yes.
Patrick. Is there any more discussion? Then I will call for a vote. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand. Okay. The motion carries and is approved.
Great deal.
And thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you for being here. I've watched your church go up and it's very exciting.
Oh, yes, it is.
I look forward to seeing that pretty landscape.
Oh, that's really going to embellish.
It will, it
All right.
will. Thank you for coming. Well, is there any other business to come before the board?
I don't think so. I just want to continue to thank everyone for, zooming in or calling into these calls. I know that it's difficult in this time and it's a bit cumbersome to conduct meetings in this manner, but I do appreciate it. I think it's a great public service that we're able to carry on with these meetings and help people move along even during this time to complete their projects and finish things. So I do appreciate everyone's participation. And some of you may like it doing this from home or office, so don't get too used to it.
I just sit at home and have a cup of coffee.
That's right.
But anyway, I appreciate all of you being here and a part of the meeting, and thank you for your comments there.
Thank y'all.
And if there's no further business, we stand adjourned, and the next meeting will be on February the 10th. And I guess it will be a Zoom
A
meeting.
Zoom
meeting as
well.
Unless something crazy happens.
2021 hadn't looked too promising yet, has it?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.